everybody, welcome to the 𝐂𝐸 Way. I'm Jessica, and today's video is going to be all about our homeschool portfolio. If you have ever wondered how to keep a homeschool portfolio or a record of learning when you don't necessarily use all traditional curriculum, I'm going to show you that today, because we really only use like curriculum, if you will, for math and maybe other things, but we dabble in it. I don't ever have like 180 lessons to give to my portfolio evaluator. So I'm going to show you what we keep in our specific homeschool portfolio using Google Drive. First, let's talk about what a homeschool portfolio is and why you might want one. So a homeschool portfolio is just a record of learning. It is whatever you want to use to record what your child has learned for that homeschool year. For me, that is a list of maybe books that we've read. It is samples of her work. It is pictures of things that we've done that you can't necessarily like quantify. So that is what it is for us. I know for some people it looks like physical, so they keep it in a folder or a 3-ring binder or even like a file folder. We did that for the first couple of years. And then I decided that it was too much paper and too much clutter. And so we moved digital, which I'll talk about that in just a minute. I keep a portfolio because in the state of Florida, I'm required to. I can either have Emily do standardized testing or I can have a portfolio evaluated once a year. While we have done the California Achievement Test as well as the Iowa, I don't use the standardized testing for my proof of learning for my state. I prefer just doing a portfolio, having it evaluated and turning that in, because when we've done the Iowa or the California Achievement, I've given it to her, that doesn't follow the state standards because it has to be proctored by an actual teacher and I'm not one. So that doesn't follow the state standards, and a portfolio for me is easier. Even though it might sound scary, it's really not. It can be made very, very simple. Okay, now let's talk about why I personally prefer digital versus paper. We did paper for, I believe, 2 or 3 years, and it was the second year for sure. We had like 4 hurricanes back to back to back. It was a crazy hurricane season. And at the time, Kevin worked like an hour away, and we only had 1 vehicle, and we live in an area that tends to almost always lose power, and we're almost always stranded out here. So we would evacuate every time a hurricane came. He would take me to family members that lived a little ways away. And so I was like evacuating with obviously all the important stuff, as well as at the time, what was like a 3-inch binder for each school year, because in the state of Florida, once you have it evaluated, you still have to keep it. I believe it's 2 years, it might be 3. So at the time, it was everything that we had done up to that point. And obviously, even though legally I didn't have to keep it past 2 years, I intended to keep her portfolios, forever for her to look back on. And I realized as I was lugging it out for the 4th time, on top of Emily, a cat, all of our valuables, clothes for a week, it was like, what are you going to do when she's in high school and you have 10 of these? Are you still going to be lugging these out? Luckily, Kevin now works from home and we don't evacuate for hurricanes typically, but that's neither here nor there. At that point, I was like, this is getting a bit ridiculous. And so I switched to digital record keeping for our portfolio. I started out using OneNote, and I really, really liked OneNote a lot. It just became not as convenient as some of our devices started changing, and as well as a lot of you guys would message me or ask me about it, and you weren't able to access it on like Apple devices, or it was quirky, it was giving you issues. So 2 years ago maybe, I switched to Google Drive and I imported most of that stuff in, so that now I have all of our stuff on Google Drive. And that's what I'm going to share with you today is our Google Drive, because that is something that's accessible for everybody. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at our Google Drive. So when I open it, you can see that I have Homeschool Portfolios as the title. And then within that, I have a folder for each year. So we have kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to open the 6th grade one because 7th grade isn't completely done yet. I still have to scan some of the things for that. So I'm going to open 6th, which would be last school year. Within that, I keep 3 subfolders: a samples folder, a photos folder, and a logs folder. We'll open the logs folder first. And within that, I have a field trip, resource log, and a reading log. So our field trip log is exactly that. It's just the dates and where we went. Our resource log just lists the resources that we use. It's not specific, like we used everything from, lesson 1 to lesson 20. It's just these are kind of the things we dabbled in during that homeschool year. So I have math, language arts, unit studies, electives, subscriptions, and apps used. Then I have classes taken. This would be all of the classes that she took. It will list her extracurriculars like karate and archery, as well as like her online book clubs or her Lego classes. And then I have a book list. Now, what I do for our book list is I export from Goodreads. So we scan to Goodreads all year long. And then at the end of the year, I will export that list or print it as a PDF. It just kind of depends. Goodreads changes the way they do things every year. Sometimes you can export a specific shelf. Sometimes you can't, in which case I will print it and then just print it like as a PDF, which saves it as a PDF. That way I can have all of the books that she read or that we used in our homeschool that year in a simple, like one PDF printable kind of thing. Then I keep a photos folder. Within the photos folder, I make a collage. I think I use an app called Layout. I've used it for forever. It just makes a square grid. And I have no rhyme or reason to this. I will create these collages about once a month, and I'll do them sometimes based off of like a field trip. I'll put all of them on there. Sometimes it's just, hey, these are things that we did in this past month. So I will show you a few. This is an R100 field trip where we shot in Alabama. This is a Disney field trip. This is just kind of one of those homeschool things like I was talking about. We did some karate that month, some archery that month, some games that we played. A whole lot more archery, but this would be field trips from that month because we did blueberry picking, and this is 2 different archery shoots. Another one that's just homeschool life, some 4-H archery, and then some field trips that we took. And then this is specific to the Blue Ridge, which when we take a specific field trip like that, I try to include a photo if possible that has like an identifying factor like I did in this one. So you'll see here, if you look through, it's basically pictures of things that I can't quantify otherwise. So there's no way for me to have like a piece of paper that proves that we went to these places or we played these games or we saw these things or we did these things. So in that case, I just create a picture collage and I just throw it in here. I don't even name them. I don't do anything other than put them in here so that I have proof that we did these things that I'm saying that we did. Then under samples, this gets kind of a little bit messy, but it is what it is. So if it is something that I can't scan, because I prefer to scan all of our items, I scan anything that's loose, anything that's bound, I will unbind it. But some things, it's a book or a journal that she necessarily didn't want me to ruin, so I will take pictures of it. So you will see here that like this is some journaling that we did that I just took a picture of for an example. Here's another example. And then these are some of her everyday journaling prompts. She didn't want me to ruin that one, so I just took pictures. So there's a couple examples. And then for each of our unit studies, I scan up my planning page, which includes like the books that we read, the shows we watched, the games we played, the activities and experiences. I make that page at the beginning of the unit study with like, these are all the things I would like to do. And then at the end of the unit study, I will go through and take anything that we didn't do off. So it basically ends up becoming a record of learning because this is what we actually did. And then I scan that with whatever pages I'm going to add to the portfolio. It's not everything that we did. It's just kind of like, here's a look at some of the things that we did. So this was an exploration unit study that we did last year. And here's that unit study page I was talking about. And then here's some of the pages that I decided to add in as sample. So like her What Was the Exploration, a biography of Leif Erikson. And then this was an escape room that she did on Marco Polo. This was another escape room that she did, and it was on Christopher Columbus. Let's see. We have a biography of Ferdinand Magellan, another escape room on Henry Hudson, sorry. And so that's it. Just, enough to give them an idea of these are some of the things that we did for that unit study. Emily also did some writing prompts in Google Drive last year. It was a really fun way for her to just like write on the go when we needed something specifically on our road trip because we were gone for a month. So I just like plugged in some random writing prompts from her and she would do them on Google Drive. So I exported those as well. So I have just those as part of her writing. Then she also did editor-in-chief last year, so I scanned up just a few pages from that. So again, we have like a good overview. You can see here, I didn't do every page. Like this is number 24. The next one I have is number 36, 37, just because I think those were together. And then number 34 or 44. So you can see I'm not doing every one. Like she probably didn't do every single lesson because with editor-in-chief, I let her pick the topics that interested her once we learned the thing that we were addressing. But I definitely also didn't scan everyone. I was like, okay, this isn't something that's important to her. She's not going to care if she sees 180 editor-in-chiefs. So I would just like randomly pick, to make sure I had like a good example of these are the things that we learned without it being like, hey, now my evaluator needs to go through 180 pages. And then in 6th grade, she did teaching textbooks. So for that, I don't have anything because she did it online. So what I did is I just exported the grade book and I just put that in there. So it's just the grade book and what she made on each lesson. So that is what I keep for our portfolio. Now, I will say, as she's getting older and as I'm seeing that a lot of our conversation is happening or a lot of our learning is happening through conversations, I've also thought about going back to what I used to do with OneNote, which was I would do like journal entries. I would do like once a week or once a month, like these are the things that we learned and kind of like type out while it was fresh in my mind. Because if I was to be asked at the end of this school year, like, hey, what was your favorite this or that? I would really have to like think about it because it's not fresh in your mind. So I've considered doing that either like maybe weekly, monthly, or even quarterly so that I could list out the things that maybe can't be quantified in paper, but also can't be quantified with a picture because like you can't take a picture of a conversation. That's very difficult, but I feel like I could type out like a little entry or maybe even make a log of like big juicy conversations and just keep a log just like I do for our field trips that says like, today we had this big juicy conversation on this that led to a rabbit trail on this topic, but I have nothing, to prove for that. And I think that would still be, at least in my mind and the evaluator that I use, like that would still work because most people are going to understand at this age as they get older, those conversations really are how you learn so much. So I hope you found this helpful and I hope that it encouraged you that you can homeschool however you want to homeschool, interest-led, unschool, whatever, and still be able to keep proof and have records. You just might have to be a little creative with how you do that. I also hope that it helped you realize that keeping a portfolio is not like this big daunting task. Because I remember it was literally the thing I was the most scared of when we first started homeschooling. Like, oh my gosh, and I kept everything. It's not that big of a deal. I will also say that you keep less and less as the years go on. You realize that you don't need all of this to prove learning happened. So I keep less and less. And if you were interested in a digital homeschool portfolio, I hope it helped you at least give you some ideas of how you could set yours up. Obviously, I'm not sitting here saying like mine's the best ever. This is just what works for me. And realistically, it probably takes me like 10 to 15 minutes a month and then maybe 2 hours at the end of the school year to maintain this. So about once a month, I sit down and I will do my picture collages. And then I will update like our field trip log and our resources if we learned or used anything new that I need to add or taken any new classes. And then at the end of the school year, that's when I scan everything up. And so there is a spot in my office that is just like literally a file like folder thing. And Emily puts any paper that she completes, like anything that she puts a pencil to, goes there. So then at the end of the year, I sort through it. I sort through any of her workbooks, which we keep all of that stuff right here. So I will pull those, go through the file folder in the office, decide what I'm gonna scan, and then I scan it all up. Luckily, I have a printer that has like the top feed, so I can just put the whole stack in there, walk away, title it, put it in Google Drive, and I'm good to go. So it really isn't like a huge ordeal. It doesn't take me a lot of time to keep up with it. And I think it is so much easier. And there's even been times now that Emily's come and been like, hey, especially right before we do our evaluation, because our evaluator will ask her like, what was your favorite field trip? Or, you know, what was the thing that you love the most? And she'll be like, hey, can you just scroll through my portfolio real quick? Or she'll scroll through it herself. I love that I can do it on my phone, on a tablet, on a computer, because Google Drive is accessible anywhere. That is the one reason that I switched to that. And sharing a Google Drive with somebody, if you do need to have it evaluated, makes it so much easier because you can just give them access to view it and not edit it. It also makes it really nice if you want to share it with like friends or family. Like if you're homeschooling and you don't have anybody around and you're like, hey, look at what my kid did this year. Like, look at what your grandchild did. You can send it and they can see everything. I would love to know, do you keep a portfolio for a homeschool, whether you have to or whether you do it just because? Let me know down in the comments whether you keep one, and do you keep a paper or do you keep a digital?